Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us this week. And this week we have Elise with us. And this is a very unique situation because when I asked if she would come in to do this interview, I assumed, as we always do, that because honestly, we haven't met until today. So she's truly a champion because she just jumped in. She said, yeah, I'll do it. I'm happy to do it because this whole channel is about creating awareness, about helping people understand that a lot of things are not seen by the naked eye, and we need to extend more compassion so that the world we live in is kinder and nicer. And it's within our power to do that. So like I mentioned before, I assumed from the post that she's put up that her son has a diagnosis of ASD. And so the topic today was meant to be, the difficulties that a parent faces, when a child has got that diagnosis. But again, I made an ass out of myself because this story runs deeper than that. We're also going to talk about he doesn't have a diagnosis. Yep. So this is what we're going to talk about, how difficult it is to even get there. So I'm going to let her tell you what she does, as her job, what she's doing right now, as I go in and do this whole Facebook business, and I'll be back. So off you go.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me, Karen. I appreciate the connection that we've made on Facebook whilst we don't know each other in person.
Yeah.
I feel like we do know each other. Oh, here we go. Trouble's coming. Buddy, not in here now. Sorry, Karen.
That's all right. That's okay.
No, you need to go and watch time there. Come on, and we'll go find this afterwards. Oh, there's a perfect example of the topic. Sorry. So my name's Elise, as Karen said. I'm a mum of 2 boys. I used to work in early childhood education for about 13 years. But right before COVID, I decided to stay home more with my children. And then I met a lovely lady online who sort of offered me an opportunity to work from home around my children that was flexible, which is really what I needed. But at the time, I don't think I realized how much I needed that journey to be able to stand in my truth and speak to someone like Karen today. It's helped me with my spiritual health, my mental health, my physical health, to be able to get through the topic we're talking about today and make me a stronger, more energetic mum, I guess. And also just to not always have that anxiety and worry about other people's beliefs of us or perception of us or opinion of us. So I work for, or I'm an ambassador for, a mind, body and soul program called the Soul Project. And that's how Karen and I sort of came across each other, is on Facebook.
Right.
And yeah, so Karen asked me to speak today about the struggles of having a child with behavioural issues or maybe even a diagnosis. But for us, we've had a struggle even trying to get a formal diagnosis because we found that even when I was working full-time, my income was not really high. So I was struggling to even afford the cost of a diagnosis. And then just the regular appointments that you would need with specialists. You need to have like 3 specialists before you can even get a diagnosis. So like it'd be like a child psychologist, a pediatrician, and an occupational therapist. So they're about $200 each visit, and you have to go about once a week, once a fortnight. So that, if you could add that up per month or per year, it's quite a lot of money. There are things available like NDIS, funding, all those things, but then there's also a process to apply for those and then get approved. And that's where we sort of came to want to raise this topic today, was that Karen discovered that sometimes disabilities are not what we always see. And as you can see, he's now going to start showing us some behaviour because he knows Mummy's busy. Hold on, you need to hop out now. Remember, we're going to the shop after this. Hop out and go and finish your movie.
I want to buy chocolate when I go to
the shop. You need to hop out now.
See ya.
Thanks, buddy. See ya. Whoops. Sorry, Karen.
That's okay. Don't apologize. It is what it is. I mean, this is the reality of it all, though. So,
Yes.
so Elise has jumped the gun and talked to you about how difficult it is to get a diagnosis. Truly, it is not something we understand because we don't have to jump through these hoops.
Yeah.
And I thought that the Australian system is very inclusive, and I did not imagine it was so hard.
I mean, I guess I'm not sure what it's like in other countries, so I can't compare other places. But even when I worked in early childhood, I did find that from that perspective of trying to help families get it, like I know that. So when we tried to apply for funding when Lucas started prep last year, he's now in grade 1, we tried to apply for funding so that he could have an aide or an assistant teacher with him at school, because even as a parent, I felt even if I'm not getting much help at home, I want him to have the best learning environment he can have. And so I was quite proactive in communicating with the school when he started school and getting the right help before he started. I think having the childcare background, I knew, and family members that work within schools, I knew who to approach and what to do. But I know through a number of groups I'm in on Facebook and people I've spoken to just over time that, you know, some people get a lot of help and some people don't, and it just depends on how far you can push, and it's a never-ending journey. So I know that you almost have to extreme your child's behaviour to get funding.
Wow, yeah.
So you, like, even one of the teachers at the school and I that was helping me fill out these funding forms, she called me one day and she said, I think, you know, through working in the childcare industry yourself, that like it is hard sometimes to read what's on the forms. From a parent's perspective, we just want to warn you that like some of Lucas's behaviours might sound worse on paper than what they actually are.
Yeah.
But the thing is that sometimes it's hard to cross those barriers because children can mask and they will show their most behaviour. Well, as we know, children behave differently for other people, whether they have a diagnosis or not.
That's right.
As to what they do for their parent or their mum or their safe person. So what I've found lately is like Lucas is not so physically disabled or not so disabled that people go, oh, he's disabled and you can see it and there's this mass amount of help, but people don't always see it, or he just will cruise along the borderline but still be behind in some areas.
Yeah.
So people will be like, oh, but we don't see that behavior here.
Yeah.
So it's almost like they're questioning you, but like I'm not fully anxious all the time for no reason. Like, you know, you're not making this up. So it is really hard sometimes, even just going out in public. If he gets his eye on a toy, people probably look at me like, oh, like just discipline that child. But there's been times I've had to walk out of shops because he will have a full-blown meltdown and I'm scared that he might break the shelf if I don't get him what he wants. I've had people in the past, like they don't say it to your face, but they'll say it to other people and it gets back to you, like family members or friends of family that say, oh, she just can't control her children. But it's much deeper than that because you're trying to actually work out how your own child's brain is operating or what they're thinking or what they're feeling whilst trying to emotionally manage the situation yourself. So I think that's why I'm so passionate about raising this awareness that, you know, not all disabilities are seen, and be inclusive of that, because I've seen the struggle from both the childcare worker side but also the parent side. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that is survival mechanism as well, that we tend not to lose. I don't have a better way to say this. We don't lose our shit in public. We try not to, because that is a survival mechanism. And I think children also have that because we can't help it, because we carry a certain unconscious shame and, you know, survival instincts that we don't want to be too different from other people. So we try our best to fit in. So share with us what, like, on a typical day, or how is he like? Because this kind of behavior, sometimes people think people do think that, oh my God, just control that child. And, you know, there is a reason. If we can, why wouldn't we? Do you know what I mean? My son used to roll on the floor in the supermarket and I just have to walk away, and he's just being naughty because, you know, but I have seen that it's beyond that. You can tell. But of course, people don't extend that compassion because they're so quick to judge. And so tell us, how bad can it be?
I mean, it also very much depends on the child, the mood, the day. How much did they sleep last night? How much did they eat for breakfast? Was it a healthy breakfast? Which is partly why I've chosen to go down this mind, body, and soul journey, is so that we can have a healthier family. But also,
having a live play for you.
No, thank you. Not now. It can be behaviors like this, like he's been quiet actually, this morning was a pretty tough morning trying to get my youngest one ready for kinder. He goes 2 days a week, and this one was just really hyperactive. He will spontaneously lash out at his brother too. So then you've constantly got that anxious sort of like, what do they think when I take my youngest one to kinder and he's got like a scratch here or a mark there, and they know it's from his brother. Like that's also not like a nice feeling. But you know, you're doing your best to keep them separate or engage them in the best way that you can. But when you're trying to get ready, all mums know what it's like to try and have a shower and put clothes on or brush your hair, whether your child has a diagnosis, you know, all those things go to the toilet alone. So when you've got a behavioural child in the house, those things are heightened, because if I leave the room, what behaviour might happen? Will a toy get thrown? Will they fight? So that's why, again, mental illness has been a big thing that I advocate for, because I've struggled with my own anxieties through this journey. And then since we sort of dropped off his younger brother this morning, his behaviour calmed down. We were just chilling out this morning, doing things together. He was just having a snack before I logged on here and watching Spider-Man, which is his obsession and his favourite thing. So I think what I've learned from him, and whilst it's a spectrum, so everyone's behaviour will be different, or the way they show it, but for my son, if he has something on his mind, it has to happen right then and there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he will just, like, if he sees a toy in a magazine, he has to have it, or he will keep on repeating and repeating, Mum, when am I going to get this? Mum, when am I going to get this? He's happy to make a mess of the rest of the house, but his bedroom is the cleanest room in the house.
Wow.
And if anyone touches it, like, it's all lined up around the room in like a perfect square of the room, and if anyone touches it, have mercy on your soul, because he will just break down or he will attack you. It's hard because sometimes as a mum you feel like you're constantly being abused by your child, because when he's not happy about something, he will hit me or he will hit his brother. We've managed a lot of behaviour over maybe like the 3.5, nearly 4 years that I started noticing these behaviours when he was about 3-ish, which is quite the common age, I believe, developmentally, because that's when they start to show more social skills, more language skills. And mind you, like, my son is very different, because when he was about 18 months old, I remember a lot of families saying, God, I've never known a child so young with so much. Thanks. What's that all about? Why are you being nice to Mum? It's brought me my wheat bag and said I've warmed it up. He's just doing, no, yes. Go and sit down, and we're going out after this.
The other one was puffed. Where's?
It's gone. Okay, hop out. Thank you. Sorry. So now, you know, so there's different behaviours every day. I lost track then because he distracted me. You know, he's very emotional, and what I've learned is that because he's very emotional, almost empathic himself,
Right. Wow.
and very creative and all those things, that sometimes those things in a child will reflect as a behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So say you were asking before, like, about going out to the shops. Often, you know, there's been an ad recently released, I think, by the Victorian government as well, where the child's running their hand along the fridge and the cupboard. I saw it somewhere recently in the shops, like just running across the counter like that, while the mum's trying to pay. And it resonated so much because the mum's trying to stay calm at the cash register, and she's like, don't touch that, don't touch that. And the first snippet of the ad is the person behind is like, oh, just control your child, won't you?
Yeah, remember that.
And then the second part of the ad is the person actually offering help to the mum. And I was like, oh, yeah. I know that scene all too well, because going shopping is something that I've had to work very hard on. There was a stage where I just wouldn't leave the house because it was too hard, unless someone was home to watch the children. Like, my partner works 6 days a week, but when he's home, Sundays are the only days I would go shopping. Pardon me. Or I would have to seek help to, like, my mother-in-law or my mother to watch the children so that I could go shopping, because it's just too much sometimes. So we've worked very hard on those boundaries of, like, if he lets go of the trolley, I have to put his hand back, put his hand back, put his hand back. But if you see me in the shops, like, I'm stopping every 5 seconds to remind him that this is where his hand belongs. So we've also had to, I'm kind of lucky that he does have the language skills and the ability to communicate with me, because some children don't have that.
That's right.
So I've had to sort of explain to him that, you know, it's for your own safety to stay next to mum. And that, you know, I don't want us to argue every time we go out. I don't want to feel upset. I don't want to be this angry, sad mum. I want us to be a happy family. So if you can tell me what you're feeling and how you're coping, I can help you. So if I didn't have a child that couldn't communicate, I would imagine that would be so much harder. Oh, yeah, I froze. Have I frozen?
You have. You realize you have.
Let's just.
Yeah.
Is that?
This might work. It worked the last time. Just put it back on.
Yeah, I'll just.
So this is absolutely very, very challenging. And for many of us who don't experience it, we just don't. We don't understand why is it so hard, because we don't understand.
My camera's busy. Sorry, for some reason it's decided that my camera's busy, but it's not. Oh no. Let's see.
Okay, that's all right.
I don't know why it's just turned me off all of a sudden.
Oh, did it decide to turn it off and it's not you?
Yeah, it's just saying my camera is being occupied, but I'm not in any other apps, so this is weird. Let's just make sure. No, it shouldn't be.
If you go and try and turn it on, it still won't let you. Let's have a look.
It's still not letting me. How do I?
Did that work? So just give us a moment if you're watching us. We're just trying to.
I'm not sure. I'm sorry, Karen. It's doing that reading alert. Your host has asked you to start your video. No. For some reason, it's something my laptop's decided to just not let.
Oh, this is not good. So we're in the midst of talking to Elise about, you know, having a child with undiagnosed ASD, and that is a huge struggle, because getting the money to go to the specialist that requires requires a lot of money, and those are the steps that one needs to take in order to get a diagnosis. And like I mentioned earlier, that as human beings, we have a survival mechanism that we try to protect ourselves, so we don't show who we really are to the real world. And even children do that. You're back on.
Yeah. Okay. And that's better. It's working. I don't know what happened. It just closed me out of Zoom altogether then as well. It went weird.
That's
Maybe
okay.
have a
That's
spirit in my office playing with my laptop or something.
That's okay. Yeah, so to the last part of this conversation, I would like to just ask you if someone like me, if I go into the shops, I wouldn't know that you're struggling.
Yeah.
So what can we do?
I mean, sometimes it's just as simple as
not
just
staring.
recognizing, or if you are going to look, just be kind and not judgmental. Like, I found sometimes people just will stare, like as if there's a big sign on our head saying, you know, look at us. And it's hard because, like, there's a lot of action, there's a lot of noise happening when we're walking around. It's me constantly being verbal, him being verbal back, quite loudly sometimes. So I think it's just being compassionate and kind. When you see someone or a mum that looks like they're struggling, whether you know if their child has a diagnosis or not, just say, are you okay? Do you need some help?
Yep. So it is
there
okay
are probably,
that we ask.
I mean, for me, I appreciate it. I guess it just depends on the mum or the parent or the dad. Sometimes I know I've probably had times where I've like been in such a fluster where I've looked up at the person and gone, I'm okay, thanks. And it probably came out not the way I meant it, but it's because I was in a fluster.
Yeah.
But most of the time now, because I'm in a better place mentally, I will usually stop and talk to that person and say thank you and, you know, have a conversation with that person. I remember the last time I was out shopping and a mum sort of stopped it and just spoke to me, and she actually helped try and distract my children with her own child and said, oh, look what my child's doing and whatever.
Oh, that's nice.
It just really helped me to distract as well and go, okay, you know, not everybody's judging me. Not everybody's staring at me in that way. Maybe they're just not sure.
Spider's eating all the biscuits.
What?
Spider's eating all the biscuits.
Spider-Man's eating a biscuit.
All of them.
Oh, no.
I'm going to say, see ya.
See ya. Thanks.
He's cute.
You're going to bang the door, aren't you? Lucky is cute, right? Don't bang the door. Yeah. So yeah, I guess it is hard from an outsider's perspective because before having my own.
Mommy, I said I'm sharing a biscuit to live in.
Good job. Before having my own child with his own difficulties or limitations, I probably would have thought the same as anybody else out in the community. Just discipline your child. Just calm them down, like, you know.
Yeah.
So having a child with limitations or that struggles like this, it's really a lot about emotional regulation and communicating. But in saying that, it's about finding out how that child communicates best, because some children don't have any verbal communication, some do, some, even though my son had, like everyone used to say when he was younger, but he has really good language, he's really clever, you know, I would be like, yeah, but the way he communicates is different. Like we all have a different, what do they say? We all have a different love language.
That's right.
So his language is, his language is very much like we're constantly having to like say, stop, look at me, stop, look at me, to make sure that communication has been taken on board.
Processed, yeah, that's right.
And so, like, he does understand everything, but it's about also, is he interested in doing it at the time? You know, when it comes to things like schoolwork and that, it's just boring. He would rather be creative than sit there and write 100 words on a piece of paper. He would rather go to art class or sport class, or his latest thing is he'll collect odd bits and bobs and he'll bring them home in the side back pocket of his bag from school and find like toy cars at home that are probably his brother's, so he's not meant to touch them, but pull parts apart. And then he'll put them all together with like blue tack or glue or whatever. And he'll be like, Mummy, look at me, I made a drone. And so like he told me the other day that when I grow up, I'm going to be a robot scientist and make toys for kids like me. So I think it's also just as a society we expect, and in the education system, children to be at this sort of level. But, you know, even for me when I was younger, I hated maths. You know, some people were just more creative than we are academic, and that's
right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I think it's just, for me, I think it's just about time that as a society we realize that we're all unique and we all have different skills. And why should we all have to just be at this one place? None of us are the same. None of us, you know, you and I are two different people, but we seem to have things that we agree on and have like in common and alike. However, there might be some things that we're totally different to. So you don't have to have a diagnosis or a label to be different.
That's right. That's right. I totally agree.
For me, it's been that's enough now. For me, I've just had to really, especially the last 12, 18 months since the lockdowns and homeschooling and things like that, you know, there were a few months where we did no learning at all because it was just too hard.
Yeah.
And instead we just did art and craft every day, or, you know, Play-Doh or something, because he didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And our mental health is more important.
Look,
absolutely.
Look, body done doing fine.
That's enough now. Thank you. You show off. Yeah, it's about, I think, really fostering what the children are good at and not focusing what they're not good at. Because for me, I found for a long time, because it really does take an emotional toll on you as a parent, you're so focused on the behavior, but not on the solution. Yeah. And so I really became sort of fixated on finding different solutions and different ways. And for any other parents watching that relate to this, or they have a child with these emotional limitations, definitely, if you haven't already tried doing any sort of zones of regulation or emotional regulation, I would recommend looking into it, because it's like a color-coded way of communicating to your child about how do we feel, and it's a very conscious kind of parenting step to kind of allow them to be empowered to talk. And I'm not saying that I'm a conscious parent every day. This morning I lost my mind. I was like, we just need to go to kinder. So, you know, I am human, but you know, it allows you to empower your own child to communicate what they're going through. So yeah, that's
I really like that, and thanks for sharing that bit of tidbit though, because besides educating the people around us, if you see a mom struggling, next time, you know, approach and ask if she needs help. And if you are a parent, like what Elise has said, if you are struggling, you know, with a child with behavioral issues or limitations, this emotional regulation, it is a good one. I'm going to pass it along to a friend, actually. That would be a great way to, because our job as parents is not just to raise them, it's also to teach them how to survive in the world. Yeah. And do well in it.
Exactly, Karen. And so that's what I always say, you know, when I've come to roadblocks, or I've had people from the school say to me, oh, but you don't have this regular pediatrician, or you don't have NDIS funding. And I'm like, yeah, because we've been dealing with this for so long that we've just learnt to go along with it, and we're okay.
Right.
And you guys are getting the funding already, so you should be okay. But you know, I've also had pediatricians that have wanted to medicate my son, and I'm not saying don't medicate, like if that's what works for your family, that's fine. I'm not judging anyone that does or doesn't medicate. whatever works for your family is your family. But what I just chose that medication wasn't for our family, because one day I said to the doctor, like, one day my son has to live on earth without me here. And that might be very far away, but we never know. He needs to learn life skills. I'm not just going to medicate him. And this was at the Children's Hospital, without naming people, but like they said to me, you know, just because you work in childcare doesn't mean you know like what medication does or doesn't do for a child. And I'm like, no, I don't know what it does for him, but that's why I'm here asking for help. But then they didn't even want to give me further referrals to get further therapy or further help. They just wanted to medicate him, and they weren't willing to offer me the extra support that I then had to go and find privately, because the public system, I felt like, let me down. So now this is why he's 6.5 and still doesn't have a formal diagnosis, because the public system just wanted me to medicate him without, like, I'm not saying if you met someone watching and you medicate a child as well, but you'll know if you're in this situation like me that you need the therapy and the things like that to teach them the behavioural regulation and emotional regulation as well. Yep. And just the life skills that our children need to cook a meal for themselves when we're not here.
Absolutely.
Socialise with other people at school or in a job when they're older, when I'm not around. I can't always be there for my child. And I think that was why I chose the big step to start working online from home in a space that aligns with me, because when I was working out of the home, I was just so worried about my child all of the time. Yeah. Because my mum's picking him up from school all the time, and I'm like, but how was he? How was his day? Was he okay? Did he make a friend today? Did he behave at school today? So now that I'm home with him more, I feel more connected to him as well. And I feel like whilst we do have bad days, every human does. And so I think when it comes to just inclusion and being aware, it's just fostering people as being unique. Like, whether you have a label on you or you don't, we are all unique and we are all different and we're all individual. It's just that some of us have different languages, that's all.
That's right. And I love that message at the end. And indeed, we are different, and we should be. Unfortunately, this is why, but this is not unfortunate, because this is the reason why we have conversations like that, is to create the awareness. Yeah. And once you know, you cannot go back to being unknown. You have known it now, so now you know that sometimes people struggle and you can't see it. And you have seen Lucas. He's cute. He's so cute, though. You wouldn't think otherwise. So just be compassionate. And with that, we will end this interview. And thank you, Elise, for being with us today. He has been good, though. He has been good. He knows that you're alive, you know, somewhere being interviewed. So he just wants a little bit of airtime, and that's okay.
Thank you, Karen, for letting me speak today. Because like I said, I worked with children prior to having my own. And so I've sort of seen how much pressure there is on mums to have that label on their child too, because I've had to be the one to ask the parents, or I've worked with diverse children from different backgrounds and different family needs. And there are educators out there and teachers out there that are also like, get a diagnosis. And I'm kind of at a point where I'm like, I want the diagnosis because I know it helps him, but at the same time, we're okay without it as well for 3.5, 4 years. So we're just cruising along. But thank you so much for letting me share today, because I think hopefully it'll help another mum out there that's maybe struggling with her child too. So
yeah, it will. I guarantee you it will. Every little bit helps. And thank you again. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Thank you, Karen. Bye.